Welcome to the National Drug Screening Video Blog Series. My name is Tom Fulmer. I'm the Vice President of Business Development, and I will be hosting this series. You can find out more information on our website and visiting our blog at www.nationaldrugscreening.com, where we help employers and individuals better understand drug testing policies and trends, and how to have a drug-free workplace. Today's guest is going to be Mr. Joe Riley. He's the President of National Drug Screening. He's also the former chair of DAISHA, the Drug and Alcohol Testing Industry Association, and current board member. Mr. Riley's been consulting in the industry since 1993, and we'd like to welcome him to the show today. Today's topic is about post-accident testing, specifically for FMCSA regulated companies, and that's trucking and busing companies. So Joe, under what circumstances is post-accident testing going to be required for those regulated by FMCSA?
Well, good question, Tom. As you know, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, or the FMCSA, regulates trucking companies and bus companies. And there are certain times when there's an accident that a post-accident DOT drug test is required. But it's only required as a DOT test when the accident meets certain criteria. And that criteria is really important to know. Okay? So the criteria is as follows. If there's a human fatality in the accident, there's always a DOT drug and alcohol test. So that's the first criteria, human fatality. The second criteria is twofold. One, the driver gets a ticket or a citation, and there's disabling damage to a vehicle requiring the vehicle to be towed away. So if that criteria is met, a DOT drug and alcohol test is also required. The third and final criteria is, again, the driver gets a ticket or a citation, and there is injury to a person in the accident that requires that person to be taken away for medical attention. So those are the three criteria that cause a requirement for the DOT drug and alcohol test after an accident by a truck or a bus that is regulated by the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration.
Well, I know sometimes that something may not trigger that test. Is there any option for testing when the DOT requirements are not met where an employer could still test in that situation?
Well, if the post-accident criteria is met, the testing should be done within certain time frames, which I'll talk about. Sometimes maybe the criteria isn't met till after the accident. Maybe the citation or the ticket wasn't issued for 4 or 5 or 6 hours. So at the point that the criteria is met, okay, the alcohol testing needs to be done no later than 8 hours. DOT wants it done within 2 hours, but for the alcohol test, no later than 8 hours. Same thing with the drug test. They want it done within 2 hours, but for the drug test, it should be done no later than 32 hours. So for the alcohol, if the 8 hours passes, and for the drug, if the 32 hours passes, there should not be any further attempt to do the DOT drug and alcohol test.
Okay. So if the driver passes the breath alcohol test, which is done right on site, then they have to do the drug screen if they're required to do that, yet those results are not going to be available for a few days. So what actions would the employer take with the driver, or would there be any during that wait time?
Okay, so we have the accident, and it meets the DOT criteria for that accident, and the test is done. The breath alcohol test is negative, and the drug test, as you mentioned, it's going to take a few days to get those results back. This is really going to depend on company policy as to whether to continue to allow that driver to operate. DOT doesn't dictate whether or not they have to be taken out of service. If the drug test does come out positive, then the driver does need to be removed from that safety-sensitive position.
Okay, and so that's if the positive drug test happens. So what if the person does test positive for a breath alcohol test on site? Does it matter about the levels, and how is that handled?
Yes, a positive alcohol test is very serious. Now, we should still also do the drug test, of course, and when the person that's conducting the test, who would be called a breath alcohol technician, gets the result at a .02 or above to a .04, that requires immediate removal of the driver from the safety sensitive position for a minimum of 24 hours. If that result is .04 or above, that also requires immediate removal of the driver, and that driver has violated DOT policy, and they will not be able to drive again until they've completed a process known as the substance abuse professional process.
Okay. And so what happens in a situation, so the accident meets the criteria for post-accident testing under DOT or FMCSA, and they cannot get the test done at all, or they can't get someone there within the timeframes specified?
Okay, so once there's an accident, there should be attempts to get the drug test and the alcohol test completed. Now that may require bringing someone to an emergency room, bringing someone to an urgent care facility, or calling out a mobile collector. But if all attempts fail at getting that test done, there's a couple of last options. One is that a supervisor of the company could do the testing. The other is that if law enforcement had done the testing, the results of that test could potentially be used for that DOT post-accident test.
Excellent. Well, today's video blog series has been on post-accident testing for FMCSA and DOT regulated companies. So I just want to thank Joe for coming in and giving us a great insight on that. For more information, make sure you visit our blog at www.nationaldrugscreening.com. There's a wealth of information there. There's a great search feature so you can find out more about post-accident testing for DOT regulated companies as well as non-DOT regulated companies. We invite you to join us back for our next video blog series coming up soon.